Hello and welcome back. My name is Mary Van Dyke. I'm the owner of Finding Grandpa, and this is a series called Building the Bridge Back to Ireland, using various websites to find documents that might show where in Ireland your ancestors are from and where to look once you get across the pond. This is the third in a series of 9 called American Records, where I describe what records can be found, as well as what information can be found in those records. Before we begin, all the websites listed here are examples only. They don't represent everything available at the internet, but they are sites that I use all the time, and I flip-flop back and forth between them because they all have different databases. Be aware that some of the free websites I show may change in the future and may have fees attached. Various surnames are used in the examples of the slideshows, and I don't want to confuse you. One example might show a McDonald, and the very next slide I might show an O'Reilly. The various records that I'm going to focus on are census records, naturalization and declaration of intention, ship manifest, city directories, military records, marriage, birth, and death records, newspapers, and probate files. Census records are important. I am a census-holic. I've got to track people through time, trying to find every census record available. This one man, Patrick Kelly, I have a 1900, 1910, and 1920 census. Each census says he came over in a different year. I expect variation. I expect variation in years, ages of the censuses, as well as spelling of the names, and I certainly expect a variation in years of arrival. Now, 2 out of 3 of these years say 1884 and 1885. That doesn't bother me one bit. I'm going to focus on that date range, specifically focusing on those two because 2 out of 3 have a stronger probability of being correct. And I'm also going to focus on looking for his naturalization papers because it does say he was naturalized and in 89. Again, I'm going to expect a variation. Naturalization and declaration of intention records can show when someone arrived in America as well as when they were born, an exact birth date, and or where they were born. Now this man, Hugh O'Reilly, filled out on the left the Declaration of Intention paper in 1910. It said he was born December 26, 1877. And when in 1917, when he signed the petition for naturalization on the right, it says that he was born in 1878. Again, I expect fluctuation. That doesn't bother me whatsoever because I've got an exact birth date, December 26, and a 2-year date range, and I can find that record. It also says in both records that he came over on the 15th of November in 1894. One of them says he came over on the ship Teutonic. So I'm going to hunt for this man in the ship manifests in 1894. Now I actually found him. The upper image is Mr. H. O'Reilly that arrived November 15th, 1894. It doesn't say he came over from Ireland or that he's from Longford County. It says that he was born in Auganoran. Now that is a townland in Longford County, Ireland. I also happen to find another O'Reilly arriving that same day. Peter on the lower image is probably his brother or his cousin, also from Auganoran. City directories can help pinpoint when someone might have passed away, or certainly have moved out of the area. Now I tracked this Peter McDonald. He is my great-great-great-grandfather, and I was able to find him in the New York City directories from 1855 up to 1896, every year except during the Civil War years. I can only find him in the 1855 New York State Census and the 1880 Federal Census. So having this city directory pinpoint his possible death years in the late 1890s was extremely critical in my own research. The directory that was printed and distributed in July 1897 was probably gathered when they canvassed the neighborhoods in the year 1896. So Peter probably died between 1893-94 range and 1896-95 range. He died within a 3 to 5 year range, which is great because otherwise I'd be looking for him 1880 and after, and now I've got a 3 to 5 year range when he might have passed away. Obviously he might have moved, but at least I have this to begin with. I know he was alive in the 1894 as well as the 1895 distribution of the New York City directory. Military records can show when and possibly where your ancestors were from. On the left is a World War I New York State Department letter that they sent around to some of the soldiers to gather information. And this man put his specific birth date down as well as what townland he's from. On the right, we've got a Civil War muster roll. Shows he's from Queenstown and he's 19 years old. And in the center, we have a World War II draft registration card, not necessarily draft, I should say a registration card. And it says he was born May 7th of 1881. However, I know the year might vary because I found often men lied about their age to get into the wars. They wanted to go to war. They wanted to join up. They wanted to do their part. However, that May 7th can really pinpoint down. I'm only going to look in a few years. It can pinpoint down where he might have been born, because how many John Sweeneys are going to be born on May 7th? Even if I'm looking in the year range of 1878 to 1885. I've got a specific date that's going to help me find his birth record. Marriage records. In America, anyone who was married, your ancestor or their children, because if you notice in our part 2 of our series doing cluster genealogy, we need to track children and grandchildren of our ancestors. So you're going to look for marriage records of those children and grandchildren who got married in America. They're going to ask you how old you are, or sometimes what is your birth date? Where were you born? And who are your parents? Birth records of all American-born children of your ancestor, not just your direct line. Hopefully you are going to find out from one of the siblings on your direct line. Maybe somebody has a specific townland instead of just a county listed in birth records. Death records. Again, the immigrant ancestor and any child, no matter where they were born, if they died in America, you're going to hunt all of the siblings and children of your ancestors, because it will either ask age at death or birth date. It will ask where were you born? Who are your parents and where were they born? And hopefully somebody in this tree, not just your direct line, will have a townland listed and or confirmation of a county. Newspaper can be found on multiple websites on your ancestors. On the left, there are 2 images of one man, Michael Cannon, his legal probate notice. He died in New York, but he was the owner of a bar, and since he did not have a will, when he passed away, they had to post notice so that his relatives could come to the hearing and make a claim against the estate if they chose. This particular notice, because I thought it might be related to my own canons on my mom's line, I found his probate file because of this legal notice. And all the people that are mentioned in this newspaper clipping are actually listed in his probate file, showing where they are, how they were related, where they lived at the time of death, including the relatives he left behind in Ireland and the townland they were living in. On the far right, Patrick Kelly. That's an obituary that was pretty much gold. It showed when he came to America as well as where he was from in Ireland. So you can find newspaper clippings on your relatives in obviously in newspapers. Probate files can be found. Now we've got a will on the left that might show full names, especially the full married names of daughters or the son-in-law's names, and possibly where they're living. A probate file, an estate file on the right, will show, again, full names. You're really hunting for the married names of the daughters, as well as where everyone still living at the time this person passed away would be living, because these locations have to be known in order for the newspapers to advertise there is a hearing approaching, so that the family members can make a claim against the estate. Now this ends part 3. Please join us. Part 4 is the first half of websites you might find the American records in. Thank you for watching.